Hey there, Blade fans. Welcome back to OG Blade Reviews. That's me. And something new sent my way from the folks at Vosteed Knives. And I haven't seen anything from Vosteed in quite a while, so I thank them for supplying me with this that I'm going to show you today, the Akita, named after a Japanese dog that hunts bears. That's high-level information. Or you could say low level. I think low level information. Not a lot of detail. I don't know much about dogs, but I looked it up, and Akita is a Japanese dog. I'm sure you know more about that than I if you own and breed or whatever dogs. But this is an S35VN and a satin blade with an aluminum handle. In the box, and I should show you this, even if you're not interested. We'll get past it quickly. Oh, well, there's a raccoon. So I thought it might be an Akita. Is it an Akita? No. All right. We won't get into much more of that, but let's show you the knife. Can't hesitate. Here it comes in a nice pouch. Vosteed used to supply these aluminum tin cans with the pouch inside. Now, I don't know if it's a general change or not. These are coming with the pouch, and the pouch is a good thing to have. There is the knife. It's a handsome little devil. And here you get a microfiber cloth. All right, in case you're a microfiber cloth collector. You never know. Hankies and cloths, right? Here we go. Here is the Akita. It is a really artful knife with this these sun rays coming out on the handle there, kind of blending into the flat on the gray aluminum. And this does come in a number of different colors and some blade finishes, such as a black blade finish. I'll make sure you've got both the links to Vosteed as well as probably White Mountain, since you can get a discount of 10% using my discount code at White Mountain. It is the Vanchor lock, but let's take a look at the blade. It is a really nice little Bowie clip. Notice I say Bowie for all my Southern friends, not Bowie like David Bowie. So this Bowie clip is a tall blade for the size, and it is a half-length clip, really nicely done. Got kind of a shiny, glossy satin on there. Almost looks as though you can't see too many brush marks. Yeah, you can see them a little bit, but it's almost as if they mirror tumbled it or something or polished it afterwards. So it's a shiny blade, but you don't have to get that type if you don't like that kind of blade. It is sporting the Vanchor lock right there. That means it is a pivot placed button lock. Now, a little bit about the Vanchor lock. So bear with me. You can skip past this if you don't want to watch it. But here's a video short from somebody on YouTube called Vucachon. Vucachon? Vucachon. At any rate, it was one where you can see how the mechanism works. And since I did not disassemble this, I'll make sure you got the link to this anyway. You can see that bar that comes to the middle and locks in place on the blade. And there it is, partly disassembled. And you see that tip of that bar is locking up right in the center of the tang of the blade. And here, that's the part, and that's how it locks up. Isn't that cool? Kind of like a centrally placed liner lock that's buried deep into that pivot. So I found that to be extremely interesting. And also Vosteed, I found a link on their website kind of telling the differences of all the different common types of locks. And they list about 7 or 8 different types of locks, including liner, frame locks, top locks, compression locks, button locks, and plunge locks, etc. So I won't get into that right now, but I will say that this is a very solid lockup because of that central bar coming out of the liner of this knife. I'll show you the anklo a little later in the review, which was the first Vanchor lock that I got from Vosteed. Professor Yu, Y-U-E, with Vosteed invents, devises, designs many of their knives, as well as this very unique Vanchor lock. And I believe it's a patented lock. We'll take a look around the rather small Akita here, but I'll show you in a minute that it's full size in some respects. Got not a whole lot of blade for handle, but I'll show you that proportion in a moment too. We've got a deep carry clip. With more and more, what I see knife companies starting to do is, rather than a completely flush screw, they're using flat-headed raised screws and a fairly high clip. So it doesn't hang up in the pocket. It glides in and out actually quite well. And we've got a milled out area on the left side for you lefties, so you can switch that clip right over. And it's very secure in that if I accidentally press with my whole thumb, I'm not unlocking it. I have to dig in just a little bit. And that also makes it pretty fidgety. It'll bounce a little bit if you don't release in time. It's on bearings. And just to show you here that whether I'm back here, all right, I still have 4 fingers. So it's a full 4-finger knife for me in my medium large hand. Got some nice jimping here that becomes a little more aggressive out here. It's not bad, but as with jimping on many knives where it's below or even with the surface of the frame of the handle, you're not going to get a whole lot of grippiness out of that. But it's okay. It's a smaller knife. So again, I can hold it this way, can place my thumb nicely on the full back of the spine of the blade, which I like to do, or you can use the finger choil to choke up and get really way up on that. And this works a little better. I can do some nice detail work like that. The blade disappears with the black background once I do that. Might have been a mistake to use the black, but I think it pops nicely against the overall tone of the knife. So opening methods, there's no back flipper. The anklo that I'm going to show you later does have a back flipper. So this is strictly a hole opener, and it's nicely tuned. That detent is really nice. You would think that they'd have a hard time putting a detent on a pivot lock knife, and some of them are kind of gushy, but this is just as nice, just as crisp as a liner lock, as any well-tuned liner lock. Then you've got the front flipper, very easily engaged. There's the smiley face that turns up because of the 2 screws and the milled out area there on the right side of the Vanchor pivot lock. And when I close up the knife, there's a magnet in here, by the way. And you see that that goes way down in there. I believe the magnet holds that button down in there. And then when it's open, the button pops up. And although that button stands pretty proud of the knife, again, the flat of my thumb is not enough to close it. So accidental closures, not too bad. And if it were to close, I'm going to engage the choil of the blade on my finger and not the edge of the blade. So that's kind of a double safety. Besides the convenience of using this, it is kind of a safety. And of course, if you're choked up here, then it's probably, even if it were to disengage, it's going to be there on your finger and you can snap it right back. So much for the safety part of it. What I'm going to do right now is, measure it. It's a small knife. 7 and an 8, 7.15 we'll call that overall. And just shy of 3 inches. It's like a 295-ish, 29, 295, and about a 2.5-inch cutting edge. I think that's as close as we need to come without using a different measuring tool like this guy. Exactly 1/2 inch across the handle. And 0.11 inches on the blade stock, and 2.9 mil. Well, just switched on me. It switched on me. 3 millimeters. Very sensitive, the calipers are. Let's dig the scale out. Fire it up and see if I can set it up for grams first. That's the off button. Yes. There's grams. Hey, grams. How's pops? 116.43 grams, and switching to ounces, 4.10 ounces, 4.1 ounces. All right, you guys who work in machining and work on, automobiles and whatnot, you're probably laughing at me because, I just give you some basic measurements. I'm not a machinist. But looking at this really nice Akita, again, full 4-fingered knife, and there's your blade to handle ratio. The blade falls a little short, but it's not crazy like, California legal kind of short. It's maybe a 1/2 inch, maybe a little less than a 1/2 inch short of the end of the handle. Depends. Again, the detent, quite nice. So in opening up, try that again. I hit the background. There we go. It is a good detent. And again, it is on bearings. So here is a prototype of the Anklo that Vosteed sent me some time ago. You can see its label prototype. This was an early one, and I noticed that this closes a lot easier. I don't know if the newer Anklos do. I got this, well over a year ago when they first came out with the Vanchor lock, probably a year and a half, something like that. So I noticed the mechanism's tuned just a little differently. It's a little softer, a little easier on the finger flick, and a different knife with a different proportion and size, as you can see. It's a good, I'm going to call it like 1.5 inches longer overall, and about 3/4 inch longer blade, something like that. No, I think it's about a 3.5 inch blade. No, actually less, I think. Like 3.25-ish. They say 3.3, I think. But that was their first Vanchor lock to come out. It hasn't changed much. It still works pretty much the same on the Akita. And the Akita has a lot of company in that they're beginning to use the Vanchor lock on a lot of their models. I don't have a full listing here. But pivot locks are becoming very popular. Here is a recently reviewed PLXE from Riot that's become one of my daily carry knives. I love it so much. And that's their pivot lock. I'm not sure if their pivot lock has a name or not. It does function a bit differently. It doesn't use that center liner kind of a deal. So whatever method they're using, and I haven't disassembled this or seen anybody's videos on a disassembly, this pivot lock does function differently. Everything's contained up in the lock. However, they also give you the backup safety. So if you're worried about this closing, it won't if you engage that safety. And very quick to engage and disengage, no problem whatsoever. Very smooth on the drop. I like this knife a lot. I like the ergos of the handle. It is a larger knife, around 3.4-inch blade. It is quite a tall blade. Kind of has some kitchen knife sort of properties to it in that the blade sits about even with the knuckles, so you can get to your cutting board work a lot easier, but still you got that point in line with the center. This should be more popular than it is. Not sure why it isn't, but it's such a good knife. I may pick up another one, blacked out one from White Mountain. My source for most of my knives that aren't provided directly from manufacturers. So for compare to an older knife, here is the, I was going to say the Freak. This is the Griptilian, which is a axis lock from Benchmade, oldie but goodie. A good deal longer knife overall. And of course, want to bring out the Rat 1, why not? Ontario Rat 1. Look at that. Yeah, it's much bigger knife, you know, coming up on 3 3/4 inches, I think, with this guy. I dropped something. Can't have a complete video with me unless you drop something. How about the edge? What kind of an edge do they give us? By the way, it's kind of a fingerprint magnet, if you don't mind that. I don't mind that if I'm using the knife. But I like to keep the knives pretty to show you guys. Not bad. Yeah. Vosteed, especially with that shiny blade, look at that, can take chips out of that paper. Yeah, I think you'll like the edge on these Akitas. So you shouldn't need to do any sharpening, at least not immediately. It depends upon how much use you get out of it. It is S35 VN, as I believe I mentioned. And as far as markings on the blade go, very few. Very muted S35 VN, very muted on the Vosteed. So congrats to Vosteed. No big billboarding. That is nice. Little paper specks off there. There you have the Akita. And let's clean it up for the final shot, shall we? Take the paper crumbs off there. There she is. High flat grind. Yep, it's a high flat grind. Bowie clip. I think you're going to like this even if you don't like small knives, and I'm not particularly a big fan of small knives. Big fan of small knives. Contrasting comment there. I think this is a very useful one. Just about a 3-inch blade. If you can only carry sub 3-inch blades in your area, perfect for you. It does have a gravity sort of an action. Not sure if that will factor in. Although you got to push, like I said, push in a lot on that button, which is a good safety feature. There you go. The Akita by Vosteed. Hope you enjoyed this video. Please give it a like right now. You're going to see my logo over here. Click on that if you haven't subscribed, and it'll bring you to a link where you can subscribe to the channel and be notified every time I drop a video or short, etc. Be well and take care. Stay safe.